Alright, my G, so I'm going to show you how to make a really gangster bass called the Al Capone bass, and it sounds like this with a beat. Let's have a listen on its own as well. So, essentially, the movement comes from two LFOs, which one of them is modulating another one. So the second LFO is modulating the first LFO. So it's creating what I call like an LFO sandwich, where you modulate the rate of the first one with the second one, you know? And so basically, you'll set the output here to go to the phase of the first one, and then you'll spin it around 360 degrees, and then you can just change the speeds and the shapes until you get a groove that you want, you know? So if I put my filter on here, okay? So obviously, you know, I'm not going to change it around now, but you can, you know, just change the shapes, even the start position here, like the phase, and you just kind of keep tweaking it until you find a nice movement, you know? But anyway, I was quite happy with this movement. So basically, for the actual sound then, it's a square wave that's down -24 with a sine wave down at -24. And there's a tiny bit of FM from the square wave going into the sine wave, +22 here on the phase. Okay, and then, yeah, the first thing I do, that's the only thing that I've done for the generators. And then the first thing is a low pass filter, as you saw. I've got the non-linear low pass with the digital mode set to quite high on the drive, and then the Q about 1.7, and the cutoff goes from 0 up to about just under 40%. Okay, so it doesn't sound that great yet, right? But we throw that all through this wonderful shaper table here, and here's where the sound like starts to come into its own, you know? So now in this kind of technique of sound design, because the LFOs, it's basically one movement, but it's just the movement is being changed around by the second one, you know? But so LFO1 is the main, you know, LFO still. So I'm tracking everything to LFO1. So everything is going to be in line with this LFO here, right? So subtleties in the distortion sound come in by modulating the phase and the bias. The phase gets popped to the left a little bit, and so does the bias, and I just tweak the positions here again. Okay, if you go like to a number that I mean, there's usually like a sweet spot on both the phase and the bias, and often it'll be around 0, but sometimes you can find better sweet spots in the distortion sound by tweaking those around. There's actually a bit of movement in the distortion wavetable as well here. So it sort of starts at the on the first instance, and then it goes up 14%. As you see, it just cycles through the distortion table a little bit, you know? But that's the sound then, basically. And then everything else I'm doing afterwards is enhancing it and making it sound bigger. But the whole kind of character came in just from that. Shaper table, you know, slapped on after a big low pass filter on a deep square and sine wave combo. Okay, so hopefully that will make sense. And then a ring mod was applied to add extra noise in the high end with the band pass noise setting, rectify bias all the way up, frequency near the top, bit of spread, and then mixing that in on the LFO1. So everything that we're doing now when we're using the LFO1 is we're basically adding to that dynamic rhythm that we've set up, you know? So that's my game now, is I just keep modulating things in line with that movement, and hopefully the sound gets more expressive as it goes along, you know? So noise is injected next. Then distortion. This is just the hard clipping, and again it's mixed in, goes from 0 up to 50%. So Saturates the sound in line with the movement. Okay. Now, nonlinear filter to shape the sound a bit more. This one's really nice here. Really brings out a lot of volume, but it also, because of these intricate shapes, it changes the character a bit. The cutoff moves in line with our LFO, 17% from 170 Hertz up to 560, and that's just targeting this sort of area here. Nice amount of drive as well, and the warm mode is selected for this one. I can never tell which mode is going to be the best. They always sound different on different sounds, so it's always good to just check through them and find the best color. Then, this is a really cool trick. So I use often the white blur 50 millisecond for a convolution to sort of give the sound more stereo and make it a little softer in the high end. But by actually mixing it in on the LFO, as an extreme example, see what it does. Get this nice interplay between the sort of more reverb signal and the dry signal. It just goes up to 20%. But it does brings the sound to life more with this tight reverb, but it's sort of on the pattern of the LFO again, you know? This is fast becoming my favorite plugin now, the flanger. Just listen to how this changes now. That just completely brings the sound into the stereo realm in a really nice way. The mix is quite high at 42%, and I just tweak the feedback, and then I tweak all of the settings at a high level of mix to try and find a great sort of this new sort of flanging harmonic content that comes in, and then I mix that back in. So now you've got all this sort of stereo movement as well, you know? Sounds really, really nice. And then just as much as I love the flanger, I love the comb filter as well. It does a similar job at creating extra stereo warmth when you flick the stereo mode on. This one I have mixed in again on the LFO. The flanger, I left it without modulation because it sounded good across the whole sound. Okay, I did try to mix it in with the LFO, but it just sounded better flat. You know, sometimes they'll sound better flat. So, but the comb filter here, you've got a bit of movement on the amount, and then you've got a bit of movement on the mix. And again, fattens up the width of the sound beautifully. Then I've got a final movement, and this is a high shelf, boosting up a lot. So I knock the highs down half a dB, but then they get knocked up like 7.5 dB almost on the LFO. So it's going to amplify the high end in line with the movement, and everything becomes even more expressive then. So that really makes a big difference, you know. I often do high shelf boosts anyway in the sound design process towards the end, especially if I've done low pass filtering to begin with, and then I've added in noise, so it's kind of bringing it all up together in the high end. But doing it this way with the dynamic movement allowed me to get more expression from the sound as well. Then I just clip the audio at the end, and then it's finished. So it sounds massive, and it's got great movements in as well. And if I wanted to like have a little play around with sort of LFOs, as I showed before, I've already set it up to a kind of part where I like it, you know, but you could try different speeds and try and get lucky. You'll need to toy around for a while until you find something good, you know. Okay, so you can find other ideas. I quite liked this one I set up here though. It felt like it had a whole bass line inside it already. Doom, 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 doom. You know, and that fits really nice in a drum and bass beat. perhaps I could find better drums to suit this bass, but I just put the drums in there as a little metronome while I was designing it, you know? But there you have it. That's the Al Capone bass. So I hope it was a fun video to watch, and you get to see a little bit of my tips and tricks for phase plant sound design, and a little bit of my mindset when it comes to, creating more expression in the sound as you go along through all of the different plugins. And each plugin that I put on is intentionally designed to add to the dynamic expression and tonality of the sound. Okay, so every plugin that I've used brings it always up, you know, to enhance it every time, whether that's adding more stereo width, adding extra noise, adding extra shape to the sound, or filter movement to, you know, give it more funk as well, and flanging things like to give it more stereo, more life with pitch sort of variations, that sort of stuff, you know. And so be intentional with your sound design, try things out, see what works and what doesn't, and hopefully every time you make a decision to put something on, you'll slowly be enhancing the sound each time, you know. So thank you for watching, my G's. Please check out my website if you want any phase plant presets, and there's other preset packs as well for Serum, Current and Vital. And hit me up for one-on-one classes for mixing, and have mastering training as well, and just general music production lessons, working on one of your projects, or diving into sound design. That's also available. Just email me if you need any more information, and if you need any mastering work done on your tracks, send me an email. And if you need some accountability in your life, come and join my Discord, because there's a great group of guys in there who'll help you produce and level up your sound as well. Thank you very much. That's it for me today. More from me soon. Much love.